The rain in Seoul didn't wash things clean. It just made the dirt stick harder. Hannah stood inside the lobby of the massive glass tower in Gangnam, water dripping from the hem of her worn-out coat onto the polished marble floor. She shivered, but not from the cold. The air conditioning in the building was set to a temperature that screamed money. It was crisp, dry, and smelled like expensive lemon cleaner. Hannah smelled like wet wool and sour milk. She adjusted the strap of the baby carrier, digging into her shoulder. It was heavy. Her back ached, a dull throb that had been there since the birth 3 months ago, but she straightened her spine. She wasn't here to beg. She told herself that 10 times in the elevator ride up to the 40th floor. She was here to end it. The receptionist looked at her like she was a stray dog that had wandered in from the alley. Her eyes flicked to Hannah's muddy sneakers, then up to her messy bun, and finally to the bulky shape strapped to her chest. "Name?" the receptionist asked, not bothering to smile. "Hannah Lee," she said. Her voice sounded thin to her own ears. "I have a meeting with Mr. Kim Ha-jin." The receptionist paused, her perfectly manicured fingers hovering over the keyboard. She raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Kim is in the conference room with his fiancée. Are you sure you have the right time?" Deliveries usually go to the back. "I'm not a delivery girl," Hannah said. She felt the heat rise in her cheeks. "I'm his wife." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. The receptionist blinked once, twice, and then typed something quickly, looking uncomfortable. "Go right in, last door on the left." Hannah walked down the long hallway. Her heart hammered against her ribs, so hard she was afraid it would wake the baby. Leo was sleeping soundly against her chest, his tiny fist curled into the fabric of her shirt. He was the only warm thing in her cold world. She reached the heavy oak door and stopped. She could hear voices inside. Laughter. A woman's high, tinkling laugh that sounded like breaking glass. And then a deep, low rumble that made Hannah's knees weak. Ha-jin. She took a breath, gripped the handle, and pushed the door open. The room was huge, with a view of the city that cost more than she would make in a lifetime. At the head of the long table sat Kim Ha-jin. He looked exactly the same, and that was the cruelest part. He wore a dark blue suit that fit his broad shoulders perfectly. His hair was slicked back, not a strand out of place. He looked powerful, untouchable, and on the arm of his chair, perched like a colorful bird, was a woman in a white silk dress. She had her hand on his shoulder, her fingers tracing the line of his collar. A massive diamond ring glittered on her finger under the bright lights. They both looked up as the door opened. Ha-jin's face was a mask of stone. His dark eyes locked onto Hannah's, and for a second, just a second, she saw something flash in them. Shock, anger. Then it was gone, replaced by a cold, empty stare. The woman beside him didn't bother to hide her disgust. She wrinkled her nose as if a garbage truck had just backed into the room. "What is this?" the woman asked, her voice sharp. "I thought the lawyer said we were signing the final papers today. Why is she here?" Ha-jin didn't move. He didn't push the woman away. He just stared at Hannah, his gaze dropping to the carrier on her chest, then back to her face. "Sit down, Hannah," Ha-jin said. His voice was flat, no emotion, no hello, just a command. Hannah stepped into the room, the door clicking shut behind her. The sound echoed like a gunshot. She was trapped. "Pause. Listen to me very carefully. I know you want to see what happens when she sits at that table. I know you want to see if Ha-jin notices the baby's face. But I need you to do something for me first. I need you to go to the comments section right now and tell me where you are watching this video from. Are you in Lagos, New York, Manila? Let me know. And while you are there, rate this story so far from 1 to 10. Now, look at the subscribe button. If you don't click that button for timeless K-Love right now, you are leaving Hannah alone in that room. Look at her. She has no money, no lawyer, and she is holding a baby in front of a man who wants to erase her. Do you really want to be the reason she walks out of there with nothing? Don't let her fight this alone. Smash that subscribe button so she has a fighting chance. Hannah pulled the cheap plastic chair out and sat down. It scraped against the floor, a loud, ugly noise that made the woman in the white dress flinch. "God, could you be any louder?" the woman muttered, rolling her eyes. She looked at Ha-jin. "Honey, tell them to hurry up. We have a reservation at Yungsik in an hour. I don't want to smell like wet dog when we get there." Ha-jin didn't look at his fiancée. He was still watching Hannah. "You're late," he said. "The bus was slow," Hannah lied. She couldn't tell him she had walked 6 blocks in the rain because she didn't have the bus fare. She placed her hands on the table to stop them from shaking. They looked rough, red from scrubbing floors at the diner where she worked under the table. She tucked them under the table quickly. A man in a gray suit sitting at the end of the table cleared his throat. This was the lawyer. He pushed a stack of papers toward Hannah. "Mrs. Kim, or soon-to-be Ms. Lee," the lawyer said, his tone bored. "These are the final stipulations. As agreed, you accept the one-time settlement of 5,000,000 won, and you sign the non-disclosure agreement stating you will never speak to the press about your marriage to Mr. Kim. Once you sign, the divorce is final immediately." 5,000,000 won. It sounded like a lot, but in Seoul, with a newborn, it would be gone in 3 months. It was a crumb, a tip. It was barely enough to cover the deposit on a safe apartment. "And," the lawyer added, tapping a specific paragraph, "this clause states you relinquish all future claims on the Kim estate. You walk away clean, no looking back." 5,000,000. The woman Hannah assumed this was Min-jae, the heiress everyone talked about, laughed softly. "That's generous, Ha-jin, you're too kind. That's more than she probably made in her whole life." Hannah felt a hot lump in her throat. She looked at the papers. The words blurred together. She remembered when Ha-jin wasn't like this. She remembered the night they met before his father died and he became the CEO. He had been kind then. He had held her hand. Now he was letting this woman insult her while he checked his watch. "Is there a problem?" Ha-jin asked. "You wanted this, Hannah, you left." "I left because you kicked me out," Hannah whispered. "I asked you to stay in the apartment I paid for," Ha-jin shot back, his voice rising just a little. "You chose to run away and hide for a year. I assumed you had moved on." "I didn't run away," Hannah said, her hand instinctively going to the baby carrier. "I was surviving." Min-jae leaned forward, peering at the carrier. "What is in that bag anyway? Is it laundry? Did you bring your laundry to a divorce settlement?" "It's not a bag," Hannah said. Her voice was harder now. "Well, whatever it is, it's huge and ugly," Min-jae sneered. She reached out and poked the side of the carrier with a sharp, manicured nail. "Takes up too much space." "Don't touch him," Hannah snapped. She pulled back. The movement jostled Leo. He let out a small, muffled whimper, then a cry. It started soft like a kitten and then grew into a full-blown wail. The room went deadly silent. Even the lawyer stopped shuffling papers. Min-jae's eyes went wide. Is that a baby?" Ha-jin froze. His hand, which had been resting on the table, curled into a fist. He looked at the carrier, then at Hannah's face. His eyes were dark, calculating, terrifying. "Hannah," Ha-jin said slowly, "what is that?" "It's my son," Hannah said. She stood up, trying to rock Leo, trying to hush him. SHH, it's okay, baby, it's okay." "Your son," Min-jae laughed, but it sounded nervous now. "You have a kid. Who is the father? Some loser you met after Ha-jin dumped you." Hannah didn't answer. She just kept rocking, patting Leo's back. But Leo was hungry and scared of the loud voices. He cried harder, his little legs kicking against Hannah's chest. "Sit down," Ha-jin ordered. He stood up. He was tall, looming over the table. "Let me see." "No," Hannah said, taking a step back toward the door. "We just need to sign. I'll sign the papers. Give me the pen." "I said let me see." Ha-jin walked around the table. He moved like a predator, smooth, fast. Min-jae grabbed Ha-jin's arm. "Babe, don't touch it. It's probably sick. Look at her. She lives in the gutter. Who knows what kind of diseases that kid has." Ha-jin shook Min-jae off like she was a fly. He didn't even look at her. He stopped 2 feet in front of Hannah. He smelled like expensive cologne and peppermint. It was a smell Hannah used to love. Now it made her stomach turn. "Uncover him," Ha-jin said. "It doesn't matter," Hannah pleaded, clutching the fabric cover. "Just let me sign and leave. Please, Ha-jin, you have her. You have your life. Just let me go." "If you don't uncover that child right now," Ha-jin said, his voice dropping to a whisper that was scarier than a scream, "I will rip that carrier off you myself." Hannah trembled. She knew he would do it. He was a man who always got what he wanted. With shaking fingers, she pulled back the gray cotton cover. Leo had stopped crying for a second, catching his breath. He blinked his big eyes against the harsh office lights. He had a full head of black hair. He had Hannah's nose. But his eyes... His eyes were the shape of almonds, dark and intense. And when he frowned, a tiny wrinkle appeared between his eyebrows. It was the exact same frown Ha-jin had on his face right now. Ha-jin stared. He stopped breathing. The air in the room seemed to vanish. He looked from the baby to Hannah, then back to the baby. He looked at the baby's chin, the shape of his ears. It was undeniable. It was like looking in a mirror that showed the past. Min-jae stood up, her heels clicking on the floor. She walked over and looked down. Her face went pale. "Ha-jin," Min-jae whispered. "Why does he look like you?" "How old is he?" Ha-jin asked. He didn't look at Min-jae. He was staring at Leo like he was a ghost. 3 months, Hannah said softly. Ha-jin did the math in his head. You could see it happening. His eyes widened. We were still, that was before you left. Yes, Hannah said. Tears finally spilled over, mixing with the rain on her cheeks. I found out the day you told me you were marrying her, the day you told me I wasn't good enough for your family. You kept him. Ha-jin's voice broke. It wasn't angry anymore, it was shocked. You lived on the street, pregnant, with my son. He's not your son, Hannah said fiercely, covering Leo back up. He's mine. You erased me, remember? You said I didn't exist, so he doesn't exist either. Don't be stupid, Minjai shrieked. She grabbed Ha-jin's arm again, digging her nails in. Ha-jin, she's lying. It's a trick. She probably got plastic surgery on the kid or something. It's a scam to get money. Shut up, Ha-jin said. He didn't yell, but the command was absolute. Minjai's mouth snapped shut. Ha-jin reached out. His hand was trembling. He went to touch the baby's foot, which was sticking out of the carrier in a worn-out sock. Hannah slapped his hand away. The sound was loud, sharp skin against skin. Don't, Hannah warned. You don't get to touch him. You chose her. You chose the money. You chose the company. He is a Kim, Ha-jin said. The shock was fading, replaced by that cold, possessive look again. He is my heir. He is nobody, Hannah spat. He is the son of a cleaner. That's what you called me, isn't it? That's what your mother called me. Lawyer, Ha-jin barked, not taking his eyes off Hannah. Yes, sir, the lawyer squeaked from the other side of the room. Tear up the papers, Ha-jin said. What? Minjai screamed. Ha-jin, no. We are getting married in 2 months, my father. I said tear them up. Ha-jin roared, spinning around to face them. His face was twisted in fury. There will be no divorce today. He turned back to Hannah. The anger in his eyes was gone, replaced by a dark, terrifying hunger. You aren't going anywhere, Hannah, and neither is my son. I'm not staying with you, Hannah said, backing toward the door. I'll scream. I'll call the police. Go ahead, Ha-jin said, taking a step closer, trapping her against the wood. I own the police, I own this building, and now that I know he exists, I own him too. He reached out and grabbed the strap of the carrier. He didn't pull, but he held it firm. He leaned down, his face inches from hers. She could feel his breath on her skin. You hid him in poverty, Ha-jin whispered. You let him freeze, you let him starve, you think I will forgive that. I loved him, Hannah cried. I protected him from your family. Your mother said she would kill any mistake I made. He was the mistake, Ha-jin. I saved him. Ha-jin's expression flickered. A shadow of pain crossed his face, but he shoved it down. My mother is in Europe. She can't hurt you, but you're going to pay for keeping him from me. Get your hands off her, Minjai yelled. She grabbed a glass of water from the table and threw it. The water splashed over Ha-jin's back and onto Hannah's shoulder. Some of it hit the carrier. Leo screamed. That was the last straw. Ha-jin turned slowly to look at Minjai. His eyes were like black holes. Get out. Excuse me, Minjai gasped. You can't kick me out. I am your fiancée. Not anymore, Ha-jin said. Get out before I throw you out the window. Minjai stared at him, her mouth open. Then she looked at Hannah with pure hatred. You trash. You think you won? You think this is over? My father will destroy this company. I will bury you. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the glass walls rattled. Silence returned to the room, heavy and suffocating. The lawyer was shaking, gathering the torn pieces of the divorce settlement. Leave us, Ha-jin said to the lawyer. The man didn't need to be told twice. He ran. Now it was just Hannah, Ha-jin, and the crying baby. You need to feed him, Ha-jin said. He sounded tired now. He ran a hand through his perfect hair, messing it up. I don't have anything, Hannah admitted, looking down. I couldn't afford formula today. I was waiting for the settlement money. Ha-jin looked at her. He looked at her thin frame, the dark circles under her eyes, the cheap, wet coat. He looked at the baby crying from hunger. He pulled his phone out of his pocket and dialed a number. Bring the car around, he said into the phone. And call Dr. Park. Tell him to meet me at the penthouse. Now. He hung up and looked at Hannah. We are leaving. I'm not going to your penthouse, Hannah said weakly. You don't have a choice, Ha-jin said. He reached out and gently, so gently it was scary, wiped a drop of water off Leo's cheek. My son will not sleep in the cold another night, and you have a lot of explaining to do. He opened the door and gestured for her to walk. Walk, Hannah, or I will carry you both. Hannah looked at his face. She saw the determination there. She knew she couldn't fight him physically, and Leo was hungry. God, he was so hungry. She took a step forward. She was walking back into the lion's den. She was walking back into the life that had almost destroyed her. But this time she had a weapon. She looked down at her son. I will burn your house down if you hurt him, she thought. She walked past Ha-jin, her head held high. The war had just begun. The black Maybach waited at the curb like a sleeping beast. The driver, a man with a neck as thick as a tree trunk, held the door open, ignoring the rain soaking his suit. Ha-jin didn't look at him. He gripped Hannah's elbow, his fingers digging into her thin coat, and steered her inside. The car smelled like new leather and silence. It was a smell Hannah had forgotten. For the last year, her world had smelled of bleach, grease, and damp basement walls. She slid onto the seat, clutching the baby carrier on her lap. Her muddy sneakers left dark smears on the plush floor mats. She stared at them, ashamed, trying to tuck her feet back, but there was nowhere to hide. Ha-jin got in beside her. The door closed with a heavy thud, shutting out the noise of the city. The rain was just a blur on the tinted windows now. "Home," Ha-jin said to the driver. "Yes, sir." The car pulled away, sliding into the heavy Seoul traffic. Hannah's heart was beating so fast she felt sick. She was trapped in a metal box with the man who had broken her. She could feel the heat coming off his body. He was angry. No, he was furious. Ha-jin didn't speak for a long time. He just stared straight ahead, his jaw working. Then slowly he turned his head to look at the carrier. "Is he warm enough?" Ha-jin asked. His voice was rough. "He's fine," Hannah said, pulling the blanket tighter around Leo's sleeping face. "He looked cold in the office," Ha-jin accused. "His hands were blue." "Heating costs money," Hannah snapped. She didn't mean to say it, but the anger bubbled up. "I had to choose between heat and diapers last week. I chose diapers." Ha-jin flinched. It was a small movement, just a twitch of his eye, but Hannah saw it. He looked at her then, really looked at her. He took in the fraying collar of her coat, the hollows of her cheeks, the way her hair was pulled back with a broken elastic band. "My mother told me she gave you a settlement," Ha-jin said quietly. "Before you left, she said she gave you enough to start over in America." Hannah laughed. It was a dry, bitter sound. "Is that what she told you? That I took a payoff?" "She showed me the bank transfer," Ha-jin said. $50,000. "I never saw a dime," Hannah whispered. She looked out the window at the gray buildings passing by. "She told me if I didn't disappear, she would plant drugs in my brother's apartment. She said she would ruin my father's pension. She said you wanted me gone, Ha-jin. She said you were tired of playing house with the maid's daughter. And you believed her." Ha-jin's voice rose. "You didn't think to ask me." "I tried." Hannah turned to him, tears stinging her eyes again. "I called you that night. You blocked me. I came to the office. Security threw me out on the sidewalk. I wrote you letters. They all came back unopened." Ha-jin went silent. His hands curled into fists on his knees. The leather of his gloves creaked. He knew his mother was ruthless. He knew she hated Hannah. But he hadn't known the extent of it. He had thought Hannah left because she was tired of the pressure. He had thought she took the money and ran. "And the baby?" Ha-jin asked. "When did you know?" 2 weeks after I left," Hannah said. "I was sleeping in a motel in Incheon. I was sick every morning. I used my last 10,001 to buy a test." "You should have told me," Ha-jin said. He sounded desperate now. I would have torn the world apart to find you." "You were engaged," Hannah said dully. "I saw it on the news. Billionaire heir Kim Ha-jin to marry heiress Choi Min-jae. You looked happy in the photos." "I look like a corpse in those photos," Ha-jin growled. "It was a merger, Hannah, not a marriage. It was business. I thought I had lost you. I thought you didn't want me." He reached out, his hand hovering over the baby carrier. "Can I?" Hannah hesitated. Every instinct told her to slap his hand away to protect Leo from this man who belonged to a different world. But she saw the look in Ha-jin's eyes. It was raw hunger. The hunger of a father who had missed the first 3 months of his son's life. She slowly peeled back the cover. Leo was awake. He wasn't crying, just staring up at the roof of the car with his dark, almond eyes. He blew a small spit bubble. Ha-jin let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for a year. He reached out with one finger and touched Leo's cheek. The skin was soft, perfect. Leo turned his head and gummed at Ha-jin's finger, looking for food. "He's hungry," Ha-jin said. His voice cracked. "I know," Hannah said. "I usually feed him now. Do you have?" He looked around for a bottle. "I breastfeed," Hannah said, her face heating up. "Formula is expensive." Ha-jin stared at her, then he hit the button on the armrest. The partition between them and the driver slid up, sealing them in the back. The windows were already blacked out. It was a private, dark cocoon. "Feed him," Ha-jin ordered softly. "Don't let him wait." Hannah felt exposed, even in the dark car. But Leo was starting to fuss, his little face scrunching up. She couldn't let him cry, not here. She unbuttoned her coat, then pulled down the neck of her worn-out sweater. She shifted Leo, lifting him to her breast. He latched on immediately, the sound of his suckling loud in the quiet car. Ha-jin watched. He didn't look away. He watched the way Hannah held the baby, the curve of her neck, the protective way her hand covered his small head. It wasn't sexual. It was something deeper. It was a picture of everything he had missed, everything he had almost thrown away for a merger. "He is strong," Ha-jin murmured. "He's a survivor," Hannah said, looking down at her son. "Like me." The car slowed down and turned into a private underground garage. The lights flickered overhead. They had arrived at the penthouses in Hanamdong, the most expensive zip code in Korea. The car stopped. The driver opened the door. "Fix your clothes," Ha-jin said, his voice hard again. He was back in control. "We are going up." Hannah adjusted her sweater and buttoned her coat. She pulled the cover over Leo. Ha-jin got out first. He didn't wait for her to struggle out. He reached in, grabbed her arm, and pulled her up. He didn't let go. He walked her to the private elevator like she was a prisoner. The elevator ride was fast and smooth. When the doors opened, they weren't in a hallway. They were inside the apartment. It was vast. The floors were white marble. The walls were glass. It looked like a museum, cold and empty. There were no photos, no flowers, just expensive furniture that looked like it had never been sat on. A man in a white coat was waiting in the living room. He held a black medical bag. "Mr. Kim," the doctor said, bowing low. "Dr. Park," Ha-jin said. He pulled Hannah forward. "Check my son, thoroughly." "Doctor." Park's eyes widened slightly behind his glasses as he looked at Hannah's dirty coat, but he knew better than to ask questions. He gestured to the white sofa. "Please lay him down here." Hannah held the carrier tight. "I can hold him." "Put him down, Hannah," Ha-jin commanded. "Let the doctor do his job." Reluctantly, Hannah placed Leo on the sofa. The stark white leather made his gray onesie look even dingier. Dr. Park began his exam. He listened to Leo's heart, checked his reflexes, looked into his eyes with a small light. Hannah hovered over him, watching every move like a hawk. Ha-jin stood by the window, watching them. He had taken off his suit jacket and rolled up his sleeves. His forearms were thick with muscle. He looked ready for a fight. "Well?" Ha-jin asked after 5 minutes. Dr. Park straightened up, taking the stethoscope out of his ears. "He is alert. Lungs are clear, but what?" Ha-jin stepped closer. "He is significantly underweight for a 3-month-old, Dr. Park said carefully. "He is in the 5th percentile. And he shows signs of vitamin deficiency. His skin is dry and he is a bit lethargic." Ha-jin closed his eyes. A muscle in his jaw jumped. "Starvation. Malnutrition," Dr. Park corrected gently. "It is common when the mother is also undernourished." He glanced at Hannah. "If the mother doesn't eat enough, the milk lacks fat. The baby fills his stomach, but he doesn't grow." Hannah felt like she had been slapped. She wrapped her arms around herself. "I ate," she whispered. "I ate whatever I could find." "I want him on the best supplements," Ha-jin said, his voice like ice. "I want a nutritionist here within the hour for both of them." "Of course, sir," Dr. Park said. He wrote a prescription quickly. "I will have the pharmacy deliver everything. He needs warmth, rest, and high-calorie feeding, no stress." "Leave us," Ha-jin said. Dr. Park bowed and hurried to the elevator. The silence returned. Hannah picked Leo up, cradling him against her chest. Felt the shame burning her skin. She had failed. She had tried so hard to protect him, but she had been starving him. "Give him to me," Ha-jin said. "No," Hannah stepped back. "Give him to me." Ha-jin didn't shout, but the authority in his voice was absolute. He walked over and gently pried Hannah's arms away. She was too weak to fight him. He took Leo into his arms. Leo looked tiny against Ha-jin's broad chest. Ha-jin looked down at the boy, his face softening. Then he looked at Hannah. His eyes traveled down her body, taking in the mud, the wet wool, the smell of poverty that clung to her. "You smell like the street," Ha-jin said. "I told you," Hannah said, her chin trembling. "I have nothing." "Go to the master bathroom," Ha-jin pointed down a long hallway. "Shower, scrub this filth off of you. I don't want my son smelling that on you anymore." "I don't have clothes," Hannah said. "I will handle it," Ha-jin said. "Go, now, before I throw you in the tub myself." Hannah looked at Leo one last time. He seemed content in Ha-jin's arms. That hurt more than anything. She turned and walked down the hall. The master bathroom was bigger than the entire basement room she had been living in. It had a tub the size of a small pool carved from black stone. There was a shower with glass walls. Hannah turned on the water. It was hot, instant, steaming hot water. She stripped off her wet clothes. They fell to the floor in a heavy, soggy pile. She looked at herself in the mirror. She barely recognized the woman staring back. Her ribs showed through her skin. Her collarbones were sharp enough to cut. There were bruises on her knees from scrubbing floors. Her hands were red and chapped, the nails broken. She looked broken. She stepped into the shower. The hot water hit her back and she almost cried out. It stung, but then it felt like heaven. She scrubbed her skin until it was raw, trying to wash away the smell of the diner, the smell of the damp basement, the smell of fear. She stayed in there for 20 minutes. When she turned the water off, she realized she didn't have a towel. She opened the glass door just a crack. "Hello?" There was a stack of thick, fluffy white towels on the counter. Next to them was a white silk robe. She dried herself quickly and put on the robe. It was huge on her. It smelled like him, peppermint and expensive cologne. She tied the belt tight, feeling swallowed by it. She walked back out into the bedroom. Ha-jin was there. He was sitting in a leather armchair near the window. Leo was asleep in a bassinet, a brand new, expensive bassinet that hadn't been there 20 minutes ago. Ha-jin must have had someone deliver it instantly. Ha-jin stood up when he saw her. He was still in his shirt and trousers, but he had taken off his tie. He held a glass of whiskey in one hand. He looked at her. The robe hung off her thin frame. Her wet hair dripped onto the silk. Without the dirt and the oversized coat, she looked even more fragile. She looked like a ghost of the girl he had married. "Where are my clothes?" Hannah asked, looking around. "Burned," Ha-jin said. He took a sip of his drink. "What?" Hannah gasped. "My wallet was in the pocket, my ID, the only photo I have of my mother." "I took the wallet out," Ha-jin pointed to the dresser. "But the clothes are gone. You will never wear rags again." "You had no right," Hannah said, her voice shaking. "Those were mine." "You are my wife," Ha-jin said, walking toward her. "And the mother of the Kim heir. You represent me, you represent this family." "I represent nothing," Hannah shouted. "We are getting divorced, you have a fiancé." "Not anymore," Ha-jin said calmly. He stopped right in front of her. "I told Min-jae to get out, the engagement is over." "Her father will destroy you," Hannah said. "You said it yourself, the merger." "Let him try," Ha-jin said. A dark smile played on his lips. "I have something he doesn't have. I have a son, my succession is secured, I don't need his money anymore." He reached out and touched a wet lock of hair on her shoulder. Hannah flinched, but she didn't pull away. "You hit him," Ha-jin whispered. "You punished me for a year, you let me believe I was alone." "You deserved it," Hannah said, looking up into his eyes. "You let them throw me away." "I will never forgive you for keeping him from me," Ha-jin said. His thumb traced her jawline. His skin was rough, warm. "But I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never run again." "I'm not staying," Hannah said, but her voice lacked conviction. She was warm for the first time in months. Her son was sleeping in a soft bed. Her stomach rumbled, betraying her. "You are staying," Ha-jin said. "Dinner is coming, you will eat, you will sleep, and tomorrow." "Tomorrow what?" "Tomorrow we go to war," Ha-jin said. "My mother is flying back from Europe. Min-jae's father is calling for my head. The board of directors will want answers." He leaned down, his lips brushing her ear. "You wanted revenge, Hannah. You wanted to hurt them for what they did to you." Hannah shivered. "Stay by my side," Ha-jin whispered. "Be my wife, be the mother of my heir, and we will watch them all burn together." He pulled back and looked at her. "But know this, if you try to take him out of this apartment, if you try to run again, I will find you. And next time I won't be this gentle." Hannah looked at the man she had once loved. He was darker now, harder, but he was offering her the one thing she wanted more than safety. He was offering her the chance to destroy the people who had treated her like trash. She looked at the bassinet where Leo slept peacefully. Then she looked back at Ha-jin. "I need new clothes," she said softly. Ha-jin smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a wolf that had just caught a rabbit. "I already ordered them," he said. "Welcome home, Mrs. Kim." The doorbell rang. It was a soft, melodic chime that echoed through the empty apartment. "That will be the clothes," Ha-jin said. He checked his watch. "And dinner." He walked to the foyer. Hannah stood in the bedroom, clutching the oversized robe tight. She felt like an intruder in this glass castle. She looked at Leo in the bassinet. He was sleeping deeply, his chest rising and falling in a rhythm that calmed her own racing heart. A few moments later, Ha-jin returned. He was carrying several large shopping bags and a garment bag. He dropped them on the bed. "Dress," he said. "The food is being set up in the dining room." He turned and left, closing the door behind him. Hannah moved to the bed. Her hands shook as she opened the bags. It was all high-end. Cashmere sweaters, soft cotton leggings, silk blouses. There were even undergarments still in their packaging. He had guessed her size, or maybe he just remembered. The thought made her stomach twist. He remembered her body, but he hadn't known she was alive for a year. She chose a simple cream-colored sweater and a pair of black pants. They were soft, so soft. After a year of wearing scratchy, second-hand clothes that smelled like damp cardboard, this fabric felt like water against her skin. She put on the socks. They were thick and warm. She looked in the mirror. The woman staring back was still too thin. Her face was still pale, but she looked cleaner. She looked like someone who belonged in this tower, not someone who should be sweeping the floors of it. She picked up the baby monitor Ha-jin had left on the nightstand, another gadget that had appeared out of nowhere, and walked out to the dining room. The smell hit her first. Roasted meat, garlic, butter. Her mouth watered so hard it hurt. Ha-jin was sitting at the head of the long table. A chef in a white uniform was just placing a silver cover over a dish and bowing. "Thank you," Ha-jin said. "Leave us." The chef nodded and left quickly. The staff in this house seemed trained to be invisible. "Sit," Ha-jin said, gesturing to the chair to his right. Hannah sat. The table was set for two. There was a plate of steak, grilled vegetables, and a bowl of rice. Next to it was a bowl of rich, dark soup. "Eat," Ha-jin commanded. He picked up his fork but didn't eat. He watched her. Hannah picked up her chopsticks. She tried to be slow. She tried to be polite, but her body took over. She shoveled a spoonful of rice and soup into her mouth. The flavor exploded on her tongue. It was salty, savory, warm. She swallowed and immediately went for another bite. She ate a piece of steak. It melted in her mouth. She ate until her stomach hurt. She ate until the plate was clean. When she finally stopped, she realized Ha-jin hadn't taken a single bite. He was staring at her with a look of pure rage. "You were starving," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. "I told you," Hannah said, wiping her mouth with the linen napkin. "I ate what I could." "My wife," Ha-jin muttered, gripping his wine glass so hard Hannah thought it might shatter. "My wife was digging for scraps while I was throwing away food from banquets." "I'm not your wife," Hannah said. "Not really. We signed the papers in our heads a long time ago." "The papers are torn," Ha-jin reminded her. "And as of tomorrow, the whole world will know you are back." "What happens tomorrow?" Hannah asked. Food sat heavy in her stomach now. "Tomorrow my mother lands," Ha-jin said. He took a sip of wine. "She thinks I finalized the divorce today. She thinks she has won. She thinks she's coming home to plan my wedding to Min-jae." Hannah felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Ha-jin's mother, Mrs. Kim, was a monster in a Chanel suit. She was the one who had threatened to plant drugs in Hannah's brother's apartment. She was the one who had made Hannah disappear. "She will kill me," Hannah whispered. "If she sees me here, if she sees the baby." "Let her try," Ha-jin said. His eyes were cold like steel. "She doesn't have the leverage anymore. I have the heir. In our family, the bloodline is everything. Once the board of directors sees a grandson, my mother loses her power. She becomes a grandmother, not the acting chairwoman." "You are using him," Hannah accused. "You are using Leo as a shield." "I am using him as a sword," Ha-jin corrected. "And I am using you as the handle." "We are going to cut her out of the company, Hannah. We are going to take everything she cares about." "I don't care about your company," Hannah said. "I just want my son to be safe." "He is safe here," Ha-jin said. "This building is a fortress. No one gets in unless I say so, not my mother, not Min-jae." He stood up. "Come, you need to sleep. You look like you are going to pass out." Hannah followed him back to the bedroom. The exhaustion was hitting her now. The hot shower, the heavy meal, the emotional toll of the day, it was all dragging her down. She walked to the bassinet. Leo was still asleep. She touched his cheek. He was warm. He was safe. She looked around the room. "Where do I sleep?" Ha-jin pointed to the massive king-sized bed in the center of the room. "There." "No," Hannah shook her head. "I'm not sleeping with you." "There are 4 other bedrooms," Ha-jin said, "but none of them have a bassinet. And I am not moving my son to another room on his first night." "Then I will sleep on the couch," Hannah said. "Don't be childish," Ha-jin sighed. He began unbuttoning his shirt. "The bed is big enough for 3 people. Stay on your side. I won't touch you." He tossed his shirt onto a chair. His chest was defined, scarred from a fencing accident years ago. He looked powerful and dangerous. Hannah looked away. "I don't trust you," she said. "You don't have to," Ha-jin said. He walked into the bathroom to brush his teeth. "You just have to sleep." Hannah looked at the couch. It was leather and looked slippery. Then she looked at the bed. It was piled with pillows and looked like a cloud. Her back ached. Her legs throbbed. She compromised. She grabbed 2 extra pillows and built a wall down the middle of the bed. A barrier. When Ha-jin came back out, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, he looked at the pillow wall. He raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. He turned off the main lights, leaving only a dim lamp on. He got into bed on his side. Hannah climbed in on hers, staying as close to the edge as possible without falling off. The room was silent. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the city lights of Seoul glowed through the curtains. "Hannah," Ha-jin's voice came from the other side of the pillow wall. "What? Why did you name him Leo?" Hannah hesitated. She stared at the dark ceiling. "Because lions are strong," she whispered. "And I wanted him to be brave." "Braver than me." "He is strong," Ha-jin said. "He survived, and you—" He paused. "You are braver than you think." Hannah didn't answer. She closed her eyes. She thought she would stay awake watching him guarding her son. But the mattress was too soft and the room was too warm. Within minutes, she was asleep. The screaming started at 6:00 a.m. It wasn't the baby. Hannah jolted awake. For a second, she didn't know where she was. Soft sheets, warm air, then she remembered. She sat up. The pillow wall was knocked over. Ha-jin was gone. The screaming was coming from the living room. It was a woman's voice. Hannah jumped out of bed. She checked the bassinet. Empty. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced her chest. "Leo!" She ran out of the bedroom, her bare feet slapping against the marble floor. She skid around the corner into the living room and froze. The morning sun was pouring in through the glass walls. In the center of the room stood an older woman. She was small, but she looked like she was made of iron. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun. She wore a suit that probably cost more than a car. It was Mrs. Kim, Ha-jin's mother, and she was screaming at Ha-jin. "You have lost your mind," Mrs. Kim shrieked. "Min-jae called me in tears. She said you threw her out like garbage. Do you know who her father is? He is threatening to pull the funding for the Tech City project." Ha-jin was standing by the window. He was holding Leo. He held the baby comfortably now, his hand supporting the small head against his shoulder. He looked calm, bored even. He took a sip of coffee with his free hand. "Let him pull the funding," Ha-jin said calmly. "I don't need it." "You don't need it." Mrs. Kim laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "You arrogance will destroy us. You need to apologize to Min-jae immediately. Send her flowers, beg her to come back. I told her it was just a lover's quarrel." "It wasn't a quarrel," Ha-jin said. He turned to face his mother. "It was an eviction." "And for what?" Mrs. Kim looked around the room. "Min-jae said you brought a woman here, a homeless woman. Ha-jin, tell me you didn't pick up a prostitute." "Don't call her that," Ha-jin said. His voice dropped. The temperature in the room seemed to plummet. Mrs. Kim rolled her eyes. "Where is she? Where is this trash you brought into my house?" "I'm right here," Hannah said. She stepped out from the hallway. She was wearing the cream sweater and black pants. Her hair was messy from sleep, but she stood tall. Mrs. Kim spun around, her eyes narrowed. She squinted as if she was trying to focus on something disgusting. Then recognition dawned on her face. Her mouth dropped open. "You," Mrs. Kim whispered. "You are dead." "Not dead," Hannah said, walking further into the room. She kept her eyes on Leo. He was awake, looking around with wide eyes, but he wasn't crying. He seemed fascinated by the loud lady. "I paid you to leave," Mrs. Kim hissed. She took a step toward Hannah. "I told you to disappear. You took the money." "I never got the money," Hannah said firmly. "You know that." You leech." Mrs. Kim raised her hand. She marched toward Hannah, her hand raised to slap her. "Mother," Ha-jin roared. The sound was so loud it shook the glass. Mrs. Kim froze, her hand in the air. "Touch her," Ha-jin said, his voice trembling with rage, "and you will never step foot in this company again." Mrs. Kim slowly lowered her hand. She looked at Ha-jin, then she looked at the bundle in his arms. "What is that?" she asked, pointing a shaking finger at Leo. "This," Ha-jin said, walking over to stand next to Hannah. He stood close, his shoulder brushing hers, a united front. "This is Leo, my son." Mrs. Kim stared. She went pale. "Son, your grandson," Ha-jin said. "The heir to the Kim dynasty." Mrs. Kim stumbled back. She fell onto the white sofa, looking like she had been punched. "Impossible," She was gone for a year. "I was pregnant when you kicked me out," Hannah said. "You tried to kill your own grandson." Mrs. Kim put a hand to her chest. She was breathing hard. She looked at the baby. The wheels in her head were turning. Hannah could see it. The shock was fading, replaced by calculation. She wasn't looking at a baby anymore. She was looking at an asset. Is it really yours?" Mrs. Kim asked Ha-jin. "Did you test him?" "He has my face," Ha-jin said. "And Dr. Park is running the DNA test now, but I don't need a test to know." Mrs. Kim stood up slowly. She smoothed her skirt. She looked at Hannah. Her eyes were still cold, but the hatred was masked now. "Well," Mrs. Kim said stiffly, "if he is a Kim, then he cannot be raised by a woman like this." "He will be raised by his mother," Ha-jin said. "She has no education," Mrs. Kim snapped. "No breeding, no manners. She will ruin him. If you insist on keeping the child, fine. We will hire nannies. We will send him to boarding school in Switzerland when he is 5. And she pointed at Hannah. "She can stay in the guest house, out of sight." "No," Ha-jin said. "Hannah stays here in the master bedroom with me." Mrs. Kim's jaw dropped again. "You are taking her back after she embarrassed us, after she ran away." "I am correcting a mistake," Ha-jin said, "and you are going to help me." "I will do no such thing," Mrs. Kim scoffed. "Yes, you will," Ha-jin said. He shifted Leo to his other arm. "Because Min-jae just declared war. Look at the news." He nodded toward the massive flat-screen TV on the wall. He picked up the remote and turned it on. The screen filled with a breaking news banner. A photo of Min-jae was on the screen. She was crying, wearing sunglasses, looking devastated. The headline read, "Billionaire Kim Ha-jin cheats with secret mistress. Heiress Choi Min-jae heartbroken. The reporter was speaking fast. Sources close to the Choi family say that Kim Ha-jin has been harboring a secret lover for years. Ms. Choi allegedly found them together in his office yesterday. The Choi family is calling for a boycott of Kim Enterprises. Mrs. Kim watched the screen, her face turned purple. That little witch, she hissed. She is playing the victim. She is trying to destroy the stock price, Ha-jin said. She wants to force the board to fire me. She thinks if she creates a scandal, you will side with her to save the company. He looked at his mother. So you have a choice. You can side with Min-jae, the woman who is trying to tank our stock, or you can side with me and your grandson. Mrs. Kim looked at the TV, then at Ha-jin, then at Leo. She was a businesswoman first, a mother second. She knew Min-jae was dangerous. If the stock tanked, Mrs. Kim's fortune would tank with it. We need to control the narrative, Mrs. Kim muttered. She was already planning. We can't say she is a mistress, that looks bad. We tell the truth, Ha-jin said. We say Hannah is my wife, my first love. We say we were separated by circumstances, but we have reunited, and we present the baby. A reunion story. Mrs. Kim tapped her chin. The public loves a romance. The prodigal wife returns, the secret heir. She looked at Hannah with critical eyes. But she looks plain. We need to fix her. I don't need fixing, Hannah said. Quiet, Mrs. Kim snapped. If you are going to play the part of Mrs. Kim, you need to look like a billion one. We need a stylist, a dermatologist, a speech coach. She doesn't need a speech coach, Ha-jin said. She just needs a dress. There is a gala tonight. The Samsung charity ball, Mrs. Kim asked. You want to take her there? Tonight it's suicide. The press will be like sharks. Good, Ha-jin said. A dark smile spread across his face. Let them come. I want everyone to see her. I want Min-jae to see her. He looked at Hannah. Can you do it? Can you walk into a room full of people who hate you and hold your head high? Hannah looked at Mrs. Kim, who was looking at her like she was a stain on the rug. She thought about Min-jae, who had called her trash. She thought about the year of hunger, the year of fear. She looked at Leo. If she wanted to survive in this world, if she wanted to protect him, she had to stop being the victim. She had to be a player. I'll do it, Hannah said. But on one condition. What? Mrs. Kim asked impatiently. I carry my son, Hannah said. No nannies. If I walk that red carpet, I walk it with him. He is the heir, right? Then let them see him. Ha-jin nodded slowly. He looked proud. Agreed. Mrs. Kim sighed, rubbing her temples. Fine, but if the baby cries, I am leaving. She pulled out her phone and started barking orders. Get the PR team here, get the makeup team, and call Chanel. I need a gown. Something that says I am better than you. And get a baby suit, a tuxedo, tiny size. She stormed out of the room to start the war machine. Ha-jin turned off the TV. The room was quiet again. Are you sure? Ha-jin asked Hannah. Once you step out there tonight, there is no going back. You will be famous. Every part of your life will be dug up. They can dig, Hannah said. She walked over and took Leo from his arms. She held him close, smelling his milky scent. I have nothing to hide. I'm just a mother who fought for her child. That is exactly the story we will sell, Ha-jin said. He reached out and touched Hannah's cheek. His hand lingered there. You are going to be magnificent. Hannah pulled back slightly. Don't touch me like that, not when we are alone. Ha-jin dropped his hand. Right, the deal. We are partners, Hannah said. That's it, we fight this war, we save the company for Leo, and then we figure out the rest. Fair enough, Ha-jin said. But his eyes said something else. His eyes said he had no intention of letting her go, ever. Go eat breakfast, Ha-jin said. You will need the energy, the stylists will be here in an hour, and Hannah, yes, wear the diamond, he said. What diamond? Ha-jin reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it. Inside sat a ring. It wasn't the simple silver band he had given her when they first married in secret. It was a rock. A massive blue diamond surrounded by smaller white ones. It looked heavy. This was my grandmother's, Ha-jin said. Min-jae wanted it. She begged for it. I told her it was lost. He took Hannah's hand. Her fingers were rough, the nails short and unpolished. He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. It belongs to the mistress of this house, Ha-jin said. Hannah stared at the ring. It glittered in the sunlight. It was beautiful, and it was a shackle. It was a promise of power and a symbol of ownership. It's heavy, she whispered. The crown always is, Ha-jin said. 6 hours later, Hannah was unrecognizable. Her hair had been washed, conditioned, and styled into glossy waves that fell over one shoulder. Her face had been massaged and painted. The makeup was subtle, highlighting her eyes and hiding the dark circles, making her skin look like porcelain. She wore a dress of midnight blue velvet. It was long, hugging her curves, what little curves she had left, and flared out at the bottom. It had long sleeves and a high neck, modest but regal. The blue diamond sparkled on her finger. Leo was dressed in a tiny white onesie that looked like a tuxedo, complete with a soft black bow tie. Ha-jin walked into the room. He was wearing a black tuxedo. He stopped when he saw her. He didn't say anything, he just stared. "Do I look okay?" Hannah asked nervously. She felt like she was wearing a costume. "You look." Ha-jin cleared his throat. "You look like a queen." He offered his arm. "The car is waiting, the sharks are hungry, shall we go feed them?" Hannah took a deep breath. She adjusted Leo in her arms. She hooked her hand through Ha-jin's arm. She felt the muscle tense beneath the fabric. "Let's go," she said. They walked to the elevator, down to the garage, into the car. The drive to the hotel was a blur. Hannah stared out the window, watching the city lights streak by. This was the city that had chewed her up and spit her out. Now she was returning to conquer it. The car slowed down. Flashes of light exploded outside the tinted windows. Cameras, hundreds of them. "Stay close to me," Ha-jin said. "Don't answer questions, just smile at the baby." The door opened. The noise hit them like a physical wave, shouting, clicking. "Mr. Kim, Mr. Kim, is it true about Min-jae? Who is the woman?" Ha-jin stepped out first. He buttoned his jacket. He turned and offered his hand to Hannah. She stepped out. The crowd went silent for a split second. They saw the dress, the ring, and then they saw the baby. The flashes went crazy. It was blinding, a wall of white light. Ha-jin put his arm around Hannah's waist, pulling her tight against him. He guided her toward the red carpet. "Who is she?" someone screamed. Ha-jin stopped. He looked right into the nearest camera. He waited for silence. "This," Ha-jin said, his voice booming over the crowd, "is my wife, Hannah Kim." Gasps rippled through the reporters. "And this," Ha-jin gestured to Leo, "is my son." Chaos erupted. Questions were shouted over one another. "Mr. Kim, how old is the child? Ms. Kim, where have you been? What about the engagement?" Ha-jin ignored them all. He looked down at Hannah. "Walk." They walked down the red carpet. Hannah felt her legs shaking, but she forced herself to smile. She looked down at Leo. He was blinking against the lights, but he didn't cry. He looked curious. Suddenly, a woman burst through the security line at the end of the carpet. It was Min-jae. She looked deranged. Her hair was messy, her eyes red. She was wearing a dress that looked like it had been put on in a hurry. "You liar!" Min-jae screamed, pointing at Ha-jin. "You cheater!" Security guards lunged for her, but she dodged them. She ran right up to Hannah. "And you!" Min-jae shrieked. "You got a rat, you stole him." "You stole my life." She reached out, her nails aiming for Hannah's face. Hannah didn't flinch, she didn't step back. Ha-jin moved fast, but before he could grab Min-jae, Hannah spoke. "Don't touch my son," Hannah said. Her voice was low, but in the sudden silence, everyone heard it. Min-jae froze. "You call me a rat?" Hannah asked, stepping forward. "I survived with nothing. You have everything, and look at you, you're falling apart." "You," Min-jae stammered. "Go home, Min-jae," Hannah said. "It's over." Cameras captured it all. The calm, regal wife staring down the hysterical ex-fiancé. The contrast was brutal. Security finally grabbed Min-jae and dragged her away, screaming. Ha-jin looked at Hannah. There was shock in his eyes and respect. "I told you," Hannah whispered to him. "I'm a survivor." Ha-jin squeezed her waist. "Yes, you are." They turned and walked into the ballroom, leaving the chaos behind them. Inside, the room was filled with the elite of Korea. Everyone stopped talking as they entered. Hundreds of eyes fixed on them. Mrs. Kim was waiting by the entrance. She looked at Min-jae being dragged away outside, then at Hannah. She gave a curt, almost imperceptible nod. It was the closest thing to approval Hannah would ever get. "Well done," Mrs. Kim muttered as they passed. "You didn't trip." They sat at the main table. The dinner began. Hannah felt the eyes on her back. She knew they were whispering, judging, but she had the ring, she had the baby. She had the man sitting next to her who looked like he would kill anyone who looked at her wrong. Halfway through the dinner, Ha-jin's phone buzzed. He checked it. He smiled. "What is it?" Hannah asked. "The stock," Ha-jin said, showing her the screen. "It was down 10% this morning. It just jumped up 15%. "Why?" "Social media," Ha-jin said. "They are calling you the Cinderella wife. They love that you stood up to Min-jae. They love the baby. We are trending one." Hannah looked at the phone. There was a picture of her on the red carpet, looking fiercely at Min-jae. The caption read, "The queen has arrived." "We won the first battle," Ha-jin said. He took her hand under the table. "But Min-jae's father won't stop. He will come for us next, physically." "Let him come," Hannah said. She took a sip of water. She felt different. The fear was still there deep down, but it was being covered by something new. Adrenaline, power. She was Mrs. Kim now, and she was done hiding. The elevator doors slid open with a soft ding, revealing the quiet penthouse. It was midnight. The adrenaline that had fueled Hannah on the red carpet was gone, leaving her legs feeling like jelly. She stumbled a little as she stepped out, clutching Leo to her chest. Ha-jin was there instantly. His hand gripped her elbow, steadying her. "I've got you." "I'm fine," Hannah whispered, though she leaned into him. The heels were killing her. The heavy velvet dress felt like it weighed 100 pounds. They walked into the living room. The city lights of Seoul were still burning bright outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, but inside it was dim and safe. "Let me take him," Ha-jin said softly. Hannah hesitated for a second, then nodded. She carefully passed the sleeping baby to him. Ha-jin took his son with a natural ease that surprised her. He looked down at Leo, who was still wearing the tiny bow tie, and a small, genuine smile touched his lips. "He didn't cry once," Ha-jin murmured. He stared down the cameras like he owned them. "He's a Kim," Hannah said, kicking off her heels. She wiggled her toes into the plush rug. "He likes the attention." "He gets that from his grandmother," Ha-jin joked, his voice low. He walked over to the bassinet and gently began to undress the baby, his large fingers moving with surprising delicacy to undo the tiny buttons. Hannah watched him. Seeing the ruthless CEO changing a diaper in a tuxedo was something she never thought she would see. It made her chest ache with a feeling she didn't want to name. Hope. No, hope was dangerous. "I need to get out of this dress," Hannah said, reaching for the zipper at the back of her neck. Her arms were stiff and the zipper was stuck. She struggled for a moment, letting out a frustrated sigh. "Turn around," Ha-jin said. He had finished with Leo and was standing behind her. She hadn't heard him move. "I can do it," Hannah said, reaching back again. "Hannah," he said, his voice deep and vibrating against her back. "Stop fighting me on everything. Turn around." She dropped her arms and turned her back to him. She felt his warm fingers brush against her bare neck. She shivered. The air in the room suddenly felt heavy, charged with electricity. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, he pulled the zipper down. The cool air hit her skin, followed by the heat of his hand resting on her lower back. He didn't pull away. He stood there close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his chest. "You were perfect tonight," he whispered, his mouth close to her ear. "You saved us." "I did it for Leo," Hannah said, her voice trembling. "I know," Ha-jin said. He placed a kiss on her shoulder. It was light, barely a touch, but it burned like fire. "But you were the one standing next to me, Min-jae." "She never stood next to me. She stood in front of me, blocking the view. You stood beside me." Hannah turned around, clutching the front of her dress to keep it from falling. She looked up at him. His eyes were dark, intense, searching hers for something. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't pretend this is real, Ha-jin. We are partners, remember." Ha-jin looked at her lips, then up to her eyes. He stepped back, giving her space. The intensity in his eyes cooled, replaced by the mask of the CEO. "Right," he said. "Partners, go get some sleep. Tomorrow, the real war starts." He turned and walked toward the kitchen to pour himself a drink. Hannah watched him go, feeling a strange mix of relief and disappointment. She hurried to the bedroom to change into the oversized t-shirt he had given her. The next morning, the war arrived not with a bang, but with a phone call. Hannah was in the kitchen, feeding Leo. She was wearing the silk robe again, her hair tied up in a messy bun. She felt almost normal until she looked at the marble countertops and the view of the Han River. Ha-jin came out of his office. He was already dressed in a sharp gray suit, but his face was grim. He held his phone so tight his knuckles were white. "He did it," Ha-jin said, throwing the phone onto the kitchen island. It slid across the marble and stopped near the baby formula. "Who?" Hannah asked, burping Leo. "Chairman Choi, Min-jae's father." Ha-jin ran a hand through his hair. "He just pulled his logistics contracts, all of them, trucks, ships, warehouses. He owns the biggest shipping company in Asia. He just put a freeze on all Kim Enterprises cargo." Hannah didn't know much about business, but she knew what that meant. "So, you can't move your products." "I can't move anything," Ha-jin growled. "Our microchips, our phones, our batteries, they are all sitting in containers on the docks, rotting. Every hour they sit there, I lose $1 billion. Can't you hire someone else?" "It takes weeks to negotiate new contracts," Ha-jin said. "Choi knows that. He is trying to bleed me dry. He wants me to come crawling back on my knees. He wants me to marry Min-jae to open the ports again." "Will you?" Hannah asked quietly. Ha-jin looked at her. He looked insulted. "I would rather burn this company to the ground than marry that woman." The elevator dinged. Mrs. Kim marched in. She wasn't wearing her usual scowl. She was holding a tablet and actually looking excited. "Have you seen the numbers?" Mrs. Kim demanded, ignoring the tension in the room. She shoved the tablet at Ha-jin. Look at the approval ratings. The Cinderella wife is the top search term in Korea, Japan, and China. They are selling out of that blue velvet dress. The stock price is holding steady despite the shipping rumors. The stock doesn't matter if we can't ship product, Mother, Ha-jin snapped. Choi blocked us. Mrs. Kim waved her hand dismissively. Choi is an old fool with a temper. He is throwing a tantrum. But he is a businessman. If public opinion turns against him, he will fold. She turned her sharp eyes to Hannah. And you are the weapon. Me, Hannah pointed to herself. I don't know anything about shipping. You don't need to, Mrs. Kim said. She walked over and poked Leo's cheek, surprisingly gentle. You are the victim, the poor, destitute mother who was bullied by the evil heiress. The public hates bullies. We are going to paint Choi and Minjai as the villains who are trying to starve a baby. I'm not using my son for your PR stunt, Hannah said firmly. You already did, Mrs. Kim countered. Last night, you can't stop now. Listen to me, girl. If Ha-jin loses this company, your son loses his inheritance. Do you want Leo to grow up scrubbing floors like you, or do you want him to own the building? Hannah bit her lip. Mrs. Kim knew exactly where to hit. What do I have to do? Hannah asked. An interview, Mrs. Kim said. Live TV, tonight. With the biggest news anchor in the country. You will sit there, look sad, hold the baby, and tell the world how much you love Ha-jin and how scared you are of the powerful people trying to tear your family apart. I can't lie on TV, Hannah said. You don't have to lie, Ha-jin interrupted. He walked over to her. Just tell them the truth about the last year. Tell them about the cold. Tell them about the hunger. Tell them why you hid. Hannah looked at him. You want me to tell the world that your family ignored me? No, Ha-jin said. Tell them I didn't know. Tell them you hid because you were afraid of the pressure. Protect the company, Hannah, but destroy Minjai. It was a dangerous line to walk. But Hannah looked at the worried lines around Ha-jin's eyes. He was fighting for his life. Okay, Hannah said. I'll do it. The TV station was chaos. People were running everywhere with headsets and clipboards. Hannah sat in a makeup chair while a woman dusted powder onto her nose. Ha-jin stood in the corner watching. He hadn't left her side all day. 5 minutes, a producer yelled. Ha-jin walked over. He crouched down next to her chair. Trembling, he asked. A little, Hannah admitted. She smoothed her skirt. She was wearing a simple white dress today. Innocent, pure. What if I mess up? You won't, Ha-jin said. He took her hand. Just look at me. If you get scared, look at me. I'm right behind the camera. Mr. Kim, you need to clear the set, the producer said. Ha-jin squeezed her hand one last time and walked to the darkness behind the bright studio lights. The anchor, a woman with sharp eyes and a fake smile, sat across from Hannah. And we are live in 3, 2. The red light on the camera turned on. Good evening. Tonight we have an exclusive interview with the woman everyone is talking about, the mystery wife of CEO Kim Ha-jin. Please welcome Hannah Kim. Hannah forced a small smile. Hello. The interview started easy. They asked about how they met at a coffee shop, partially true. They asked about the baby. Hannah talked about Leo with genuine love and the anchor softened. Then came the hard questions. There are rumors, the anchor said, leaning forward, that you left Mr. Kim because of his relationship with Choi Minjai. Is that true? Hannah took a breath. She looked into the darkness and saw Ha-jin's silhouette. I left, Hannah began, her voice steady, because I felt small. I came from nothing, my husband. He is a sun, he shines so bright, and the people around him. They made me feel like a shadow. I thought he would be better off without me. And Ms. Choi, she was part of that world, Hannah said. She told me I didn't belong. She told me I was holding him back. I believed her. The anchor nodded, eating it up. And now, why come back? Because of my son, Hannah said. I realized that hiding was cowardly. I realized that my son deserves his father and my husband. He deserves to know his son. Chairman Choi has recently frozen shipments to Kim Enterprises, the anchor noted. Many say this is personal revenge for the broken engagement. What do you say to him? Hannah looked directly into the camera lens. She imagined Minjai's father watching. I would say, Hannah said, her voice turning hard, that fighting a war with shipping containers is easy for a rich man. But hurting a family, trying to bankrupt a father so he can't provide for his child, that is weak. Mr. Choi, you have a daughter, you love her. Ha-jin loves his son. Don't punish an innocent baby because your pride is hurt. Silence filled the studio. The anchor looked stunned. It was a direct call-out. It was brave. It was perfect. Thank you, Mrs. Kim, the anchor whispered. Cut! Ha-jin was by her side in seconds. He pulled her up and hugged her. He buried his face in her neck. You were amazing, he groaned. Choi is going to have a stroke. Did I do good? Hannah asked, feeling lightheaded. You just won the war, Ha-jin said. They walked out of the studio hand in hand. The paparazzi outside were screaming her name, but this time the questions were different. Hannah, did Choi really threaten the baby? Hannah, you are a hero. They got into the car. Ha-jin checked his phone. Choi's stock is dropping, he said, laughing. The public is calling for a boycott of his shipping line. He's trending as evil grandpa. Hannah laughed. It felt good to laugh. Evil grandpa, that's catchy. But the laughter died when the car suddenly swerved. What the hell? Ha-jin shouted. Sorry, sir, the driver yelled, wrestling with the steering wheel. A van just cut us off. A black van screeched to a halt in front of them, blocking the road. The street was narrow, a shortcut back to the penthouse. Reverse, Ha-jin ordered. The driver slammed the car into reverse, but another van blocked them from behind. They were trapped. Lock the doors, Ha-jin said, his voice deadly calm. He reached under his seat and pulled out a baton. Hannah, get on the floor, cover Leo. What's happening? Hannah cried, sliding off the leather seat to the floor mats, curling her body around the baby carrier. Choi isn't playing with boats anymore, Ha-jin said. Men in black masks jumped out of the vans. They held baseball bats and crowbars. They didn't look like professionals. They looked like hired thugs. Smash! A bat hit the window right next to Hannah's head. The safety glass shattered but held together in a spiderweb pattern. Hannah screamed. Leo woke up and started to wail. Stay down, Ha-jin roared. He opened his door. He didn't wait for them to break in. He went out to meet them. Ha-jin, no, Hannah screamed. Ha-jin stepped out into the rain. He swung the baton, cracking it against the knee of the first attacker. The man went down screaming. Ha-jin moved like a dancer, a violent, brutal dancer. He had trained in martial arts since he was a boy, a requirement for the heir of a dynasty that had many enemies, but there were 6 of them. Hannah watched from the floor of the car, tears streaming down her face. She saw Ha-jin fighting. He took a punch to the jaw but didn't fall. He kicked a man in the chest. Get the girl, one of the attackers shouted. The boss wants the girl. 2 men broke away from Ha-jin and ran toward the car. They smashed the back window with a crowbar. Glass rained down on Hannah. A hand reached in, grabbing Hannah's hair. Got her. No, Hannah screamed, kicking out. She kicked the man in the face. He grunted but didn't let go. He dragged her upward. Let go of my son, she shrieked, clutching the carrier with one hand and clawing at the man's arm with the other. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out. Everyone froze. Ha-jin stood by the hood of the car. He wasn't holding a baton anymore. He was holding a gun. He had taken it from the driver's holster. Touch her, Ha-jin panted, blood dripping from a cut on his eyebrow, and I will blow your head off. The thug holding Hannah froze. He looked at Ha-jin's eyes. They were the eyes of a madman. Let her go. The thug released Hannah's hair. He backed away slowly. Go, Ha-jin screamed. He fired a shot into the air. The thugs scrambled. They realized this wasn't an easy job. They piled back into their vans and peeled away, tires screeching. Silence returned to the alley except for the sound of Leo crying and the rain hitting the roof. Ha-jin dropped the gun. He ran to the back door. He ripped it open. Hannah, he pulled her out of the car. He checked her frantically. Did they hurt you? Did they touch him? I'm okay, Hannah sobbed, shaking uncontrollably. I'm okay. Leo is okay. Ha-jin pulled them both into his arms. He squeezed them so hard it hurt. He was shaking too. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry. I thought I lost you again. He pulled back and looked at her face. He wiped a smudge of blood, his blood, from her cheek. Choi is dead, Ha-jin said. His voice wasn't human. It was a demon's voice. He sent thugs to grab my wife and son. He is a dead man. Ha-jin, you're bleeding, Hannah said, touching his cut. It doesn't matter, Ha-jin said. Get back in the car. We are going home. They climbed back into the battered car. The windows were smashed, wind blowing through. Ha-jin held Hannah the whole way, his eyes scanning the streets, daring anyone else to try. When they got back to the penthouse, the security was tripled. There were guards at the elevator, guards in the hall, guards on the roof. Ha-jin didn't even stop to change. He marched into the living room, sat Hannah down, and picked up his phone. Get me the file, Ha-jin said into the phone. The one on Choi's illegal dumping. The one we were saving for an emergency. He listened for a second. Yes, release it, all of it. Send it to the prosecutor, send it to the press, burn him down. He hung up. He looked at Hannah. It's over, he said. By tomorrow morning, Choi will be in handcuffs. He will never threaten you again. Hannah looked at him. He was bruised, bloody, and terrifying. But he was also the man who had stood in the rain and fought 6 men for her. Come here, Hannah said softly. Ha-jin walked over to her. He fell to his knees in front of the chair, burying his face in her lap. He wrapped his arms around her waist. I was so scared, the billionaire whispered, his voice breaking. I have never been scared in my life, Hannah, but when I saw him grab you. Hannah ran her fingers through his hair. She felt the dampness of the rain and the sticky blood. We're safe, she said. You saved us. She leaned down and kissed the top of his head. Thank you, Ha-jin. He looked up. Their faces were inches apart. The adrenaline, the fear, the relief, it all crashed together. He didn't ask this time, he just leaned in. And Hannah didn't pull away, she met his lips. The kiss was desperate. It tasted like blood and rain and whiskey. It wasn't gentle. It was a claim. It was a promise. He stood up, pulling her with him. He kissed her deeper, his hands tangling in her hair. Hannah wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him closer. Stay with me, he murmured against her lips. Tonight, in the bed. No pillow wall. No pillow wall, Hannah agreed breathlessly. He picked her up, carrying her toward the bedroom. The war outside could burn. In here, they were finally, truly coming home. The sun was too bright. That was the first thing Hannah noticed. It burned through the sheer white curtains, heating her skin. She shifted, burying her face into the pillow. But the pillow wasn't soft. It was hard and warm, and it moved. Hannah's eyes snapped open. She was lying on Ha-jin's chest. His arm was wrapped tightly around her waist, pinning her to the mattress. Her leg was tangled with his. The pillow wall she had built 2 nights ago was gone. She looked up slowly. Ha-jin was awake. He was staring at the ceiling, his other hand resting behind his head. He looked peaceful, the deep frown lines between his eyebrows smoothed out by sleep. But his eyes were alert. He felt her move and looked down. A slow, lazy smile spread across his face. Morning, he rasped. His voice was deep, rough with sleep. Morning, Hannah whispered. She felt her face heat up. The memories of last night rushed back. The car attack, the fear, the desperate kiss in the rain, and then the way he had held her all night like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to the earth. Did you sleep? Ha-jin asked. He ran his hand up and down her back, tracing the line of her spine. Better than I have in a year, Hannah admitted. I watched the door, Ha-jin said. The smile faded, replaced by a flicker of that dangerous darkness. I kept waiting for someone to try and come in, but no one did. We're safe, Hannah reminded him. She placed her hand on his chest, right over his heart. It was beating steady and strong. For now, Ha-jin said. He turned on his side, facing her. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. But today we finish it. Stop. I know you want to see Ha-jin take down the bad guys. I know you want to see Hannah claim her throne. But before we destroy the villains, I need you to do something for me. Scroll down to the comments section. Tell me, if you were Hannah, would you forgive Mrs. Kim? Yes or no? I want to see a war in the comments. And while you are there, hit that like button. If you don't subscribe to Timeless K-Love right now, you might miss the moment Hannah finally slaps Minjai. Do you really want to miss that justice? Don't risk it. Subscribe now. A gurgling sound came from the corner of the room. Leo. Hannah sat up quickly, pulling the sheet with her. He's awake. Let him fuss for a minute, Ha-jin groaned, reaching for her. I want 5 more minutes. He's your son, Hannah laughed, dodging his hand. He doesn't do 5 more minutes. He does feed me now or I scream. She got out of bed, grabbing the silk robe from the floor. She walked to the bassinet. Leo was kicking his legs, blowing bubbles. He looked happy. He looked well-fed. The dark circles under his eyes were already fading. Hi, baby, Hannah cooed, picking him up. Ha-jin sat up. He watched them. The look on his face was unreadable. It wasn't just love, it was relief. It was the look of a man who had been holding his breath for a very long time and was finally exhaling. Turn on the TV, Ha-jin said, standing up and pulling on a pair of sweatpants. Why? Because the file I sent last night, Ha-jin said, walking to the wall-mounted screen. It should be hitting the news right about now. He pressed the remote. The screen flickered to life. It was the same news channel as yesterday, but the anchor didn't look excited this time. She looked serious. Breaking news, the headline screamed in red letters. Chairman CHOI arrested in dawn raid. Hannah gasped, clutching Leo tighter. The screen showed shaky footage from a helicopter. Police cars, dozens of them, surrounded a massive estate. Men in uniforms were leading a man out in handcuffs. It was Chairman Choi. He looked old. He looked small. He wasn't wearing his usual suit. He was wearing pajamas. He was shouting at the cameras, but the police shoved him into the back of a squad car. Prosecutors allege that Choi Shipping has been illegally dumping toxic chemical waste off the coast of Incheon for 10 years, the reporter said. Documents leaked last night reveal a massive bribery scheme to cover up the environmental damage. If convicted, Chairman Choi faces life in prison. Toxic waste? Hannah looked at Ha-jin. You knew. I suspected, Ha-jin said. He crossed his arms, watching the screen with cold satisfaction. I spent 5 years gathering the proof. I was saving it. I was going to use it to force him to sell me his company cheap one day. He looked at Hannah. But when he touched you, I decided I didn't want his company. I wanted his head. What about Min-jae? Hannah asked. As if on cue, the camera cut to a shot of Min-jae standing outside the police station. She was screaming at reporters, looking disheveled and frantic. My father is innocent, Min-jae shrieked into a microphone. This is a setup. It's Kim Ha-jin. He did this. He is trying to ruin us. She sounds crazy, Ha-jin noted without emotion. The more she screams, the more guilty they look. He turned off the TV. The room went quiet. It's over, Ha-jin said. The shipping ban will be lifted by noon. The new interim CEO of Choice Shipping will want to distance himself from the scandal. He will beg us to take our cargo back. He walked over to Hannah and Leo. He wrapped his arms around both of them, burying his face in the crook of Hannah's neck. We won, he whispered. Hannah leaned into him. She felt the tension leaving his body. The war was over, or so she thought. 2 hours later, they were in the kitchen. The mood was light. Ha-jin was trying to feed Leo a bottle. He insisted on doing it himself, while Hannah drank coffee that cost more than her old rent. The elevator dinged. Hannah stiffened. Is that your mother? Probably. Ha-jin didn't look up from Leo. She smells victory. She will be here to gloat. But when the doors opened, it wasn't Mrs. Kim. It was a team of people. There was a man with a tape measure, a woman holding a garment bag, a photographer, and 3 assistants carrying tablets. Behind them, marching like a general, was Mrs. Kim. Good morning, Mrs. Kim chirped. She looked terrifyingly happy. No time for breakfast. We have work to do. Mother, Ha-jin sighed, putting the bottle down. Leo whined. What is this? The wedding, Mrs. Kim said, as if it was obvious. We need to plan the wedding. We are already married, Hannah said, standing up. You are married on paper, Mrs. Kim corrected, looking Hannah up and down with critical eyes. But the public needs a show. They need a royal wedding. We need to bury the Mistress rumors once and for all. We need a ceremony so grand that people will forget Min-jae ever existed. She snapped her fingers. The man with the tape measure rushed toward Hannah. Arms up, he commanded. Wait, Hannah stepped back. I didn't agree to this. You agreed to be Mrs. Kim, Mrs. Kim said sharply. This is the job. You smile, you wear the dress, you cut the cake, and you look happy doing it. I am happy, Hannah said. But I don't want a circus. I just got my family back. The circus protects the family, Mrs. Kim said. She walked over to the kitchen island and poured herself a coffee. Chairman Choi is gone, yes, but his allies are still out there. If we look weak, they will attack. A wedding shows strength. It shows stability. She looked at Ha-jin. Tell her, Ha-jin, tell her it's necessary. Ha-jin looked at his mother. Then he looked at Hannah. He saw the panic in her eyes. She had just escaped one cage. She didn't want to step into another one. No, Ha-jin said. Mrs. Kim froze. Excuse me. No wedding, Ha-jin said firmly. He picked Leo back up. Hannah is tired. The baby is recovering. We are not parading them around like show ponies. But the press. I don't care about the press, Ha-jin growled. I released the Choi files. The stock is up 20% this morning. I saved the company. I don't need a wedding to prove I'm strong. He walked over to Hannah and took her hand. If Hannah wants a wedding, we will have one, Ha-jin said. Small, private, whenever she is ready, but we are not doing it for you, and we are not doing it for the stock price. Mrs. Kim's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She wasn't used to being told no, especially not by her son when business was involved. You are making a mistake, Mrs. Kim warned. The public has a short memory. They love you today. Tomorrow they will get bored. You need to feed the beast. I'm done feeding beasts, Ha-jin said. Get these people out of my house. He gestured to the stylist and the photographer. Out, all of you. The team looked at Mrs. Kim nervously. Go, Ha-jin roared. They scrambled back into the elevator. Mrs. Kim stood alone in the kitchen. She looked smaller without her entourage. She looked at Ha-jin, and for the first time she looked impressed. You have changed, she noted. I have a son now, Ha-jin said. I have something to lose. Mrs. Kim looked at Hannah. And you? Are you going to let him throw away a marketing opportunity worth billions? Hannah looked at the older woman. She realized then that Mrs. Kim wasn't evil. She was just empty. All she had was the company. She didn't have love. She didn't have warmth. She just had numbers. I agree with my husband, Hannah said calmly. We don't need a show. We have the truth. Mrs. Kim stared at her for a long moment. Then she let out a short, sharp sigh. Fine, Mrs. Kim said. She adjusted her blazer. No wedding, but you are doing the Vogue cover shoot next week. That is non-negotiable. We'll see, Ha-jin said. Mrs. Kim turned to leave. At the elevator, she paused. The DNA test results came back this morning, she said. Hannah tensed. Ha-jin didn't blink. And Ha-jin asked. 99.9% match, Mrs. Kim said. She looked at Leo one last time. A strange softness touched her eyes. He looks like your father, stubborn chin. Then the doors closed and she was gone. The peace didn't last long. That afternoon, Ha-jin had to go to the office. The board of directors had called an emergency meeting to discuss the Choi scandal and the future of the company. I have to go, Ha-jin said, adjusting his tie in the mirror. He looked like a king preparing for battle. I need to solidify my position before the interim CEO of Choi Shipping makes a move. I'm coming with you, Hannah said. Ha-jin turned. No, it's safer here. The press is swarming the building. I'm not hiding anymore, Hannah said. She was wearing a simple black dress, the diamond ring sparkling on her finger. You said we are partners. Partners don't hide. Ha-jin looked at her. He smiled. Okay, let's go. The drive to the Kim Tower was different this time. The windows of the car were fixed. The security detail was massive, 2 SUVs in front, 2 behind. When they arrived, the lobby was packed. Reporters, employees, curious onlookers. Ha-jin got out first. He helped Hannah out. He didn't cover her face. He held her hand high. They walked through the lobby. Camera flashes popped like fireworks. People shouted questions, but the tone had changed. There were no insults. There was awe. Mr. Kim, Mrs. Kim, over here. They got into the private elevator. The doors closed, shutting out the noise. Ready? Ha-jin asked as the elevator climbed to the 40th floor. Ready, Hannah breathed. The doors opened. They walked down the hallway, the same hallway Hannah had walked down 3 days ago in wet sneakers. The receptionist stood up and bowed so low her nose almost touched the desk. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Kim. They walked past the conference room where it had all started. Suddenly, a voice rang out. Ha-jin! They stopped. Minjai was standing in the middle of the hallway. She looked like a ghost. Her designer dress was wrinkled. Her hair was flat. Her eyes were red and swollen. She was holding a cardboard box full of personal items. Security guards were standing behind her, looking uncomfortable. Minjai, Ha-jin said. His voice was cold. You are banned from the building. I came to get my things, Minjai whispered. Her voice cracked. She looked at Ha-jin, then at Hannah, her eyes filled with fresh tears. You won, Minjai said to Hannah. Are you happy? My father is in jail. My name is a joke. I have nothing. Hannah looked at the woman who had tormented her. She remembered the insults. Trash, cleaner, dog. Hannah stepped forward. She let go of Ha-jin's hand. I'm not happy that you are in pain, Hannah said softly, but I am happy that you can't hurt us anymore. I loved him, Minjai sobbed. I really loved him. No, Hannah said. She shook her head. You loved the idea of him. You loved the power. If you loved him, you wouldn't have tried to destroy his company the moment he said no. You wouldn't have tried to hurt his son. Minjai flinched. She knew it was true. Go, Minjai, Hannah said. Start over, somewhere else, somewhere far away. Minjai looked at Ha-jin. He didn't even look at her. He was watching Hannah with pride. Minjai lowered her head. She gripped her box tighter. Goodbye, she whispered. She walked past them toward the elevator. The sound of her heels clicking on the floor faded away. Ha-jin walked up behind Hannah. He wrapped his arms around her waist. You were kind, he said. Kinder than she deserved. I did it for me, Hannah said, hating her. It takes too much energy. I want to use that energy for us. Ha-jin kissed her cheek. Let's go. The board is waiting. They walked into the boardroom. The 20 men and women sitting around the table stood up instantly. Ha-jin walked to the head of the table. He didn't sit. He stood there, his hand resting on the back of the leather chair. Hannah stood beside him. Gentlemen, Ha-jin said. Ladies, you all know my wife. Board members nodded, murmuring polite greetings. They looked at Hannah with new respect. They saw the ring. They saw the steel in her spine. They knew she wasn't just a decoration. She was the mother of the heir. We have a lot of work to do, Ha-jin said. Choi Shipping is down. We need to secure new logistics partners by the end of the week. I have a plan. He looked at Hannah. But first, Ha-jin said, I have an announcement. I'm transferring 10% of my personal shares to my son, Leo Kim. Until he is of age, his mother, Hannah Kim, will hold his proxy vote. The room went silent. 10% was huge. It meant Hannah had a seat at the table, a real seat. Does anyone object? Ha-jin asked quietly. No one dared to speak. Good, Ha-jin smiled. Now let's get to work. Hannah looked at her husband. He had just given her a shield that no one could ever break. He had made her untouchable. She sat down in the chair next to him. She picked up a pen. The meeting began. 6 months later, the snow was falling in Seoul, covering the dirty streets in a blanket of white. Hannah sat in the nursery. It was warm and smelled of lavender. Leo was crawling now. He was fast. He zoomed across the carpet, chasing a blue stuffed lion. Careful, Hannah laughed, grabbing him before he bumped into the table. He's going to be a runner. a voice said from the doorway. Ha-jin leaned against the frame. He had snow on the shoulders of his coat. He looked tired but happy. "Do you get the contract?" Hannah asked. "Signed, sealed, delivered," Ha-jin said, walking over. He loosened his tie. "We are expanding to Europe next year." He sat on the floor next to them. He didn't care about his expensive suit pants. He picked Leo up and tossed him in the air. Leo shrieked with delight. "Dada!" Leo squealed. Ha-jin froze. He looked at Hannah. "Did you hear that?" "I heard it," Hannah smiled. "He said Dada," Ha-jin beamed. He hugged Leo tight. "That's right, I'm Dada." He looked at Hannah over the baby's head. His eyes were soft. "I have a surprise for you," Ha-jin said. "Another diamond," Hannah teased. "I'm running out of fingers." "No," Ha-jin reached into his pocket. He pulled out a key, an old brass key. "What is this?" "It's the key to your old apartment," Ha-jin said. Hannah stared at him. "Why?" "I bought the building," Ha-jin said. "I was going to tear it down, but then I thought, maybe we should keep it as a reminder." "A reminder of what?" "Of where we started," Ha-jin said, "and how far we climbed." He took her hand. "And I bought the diner too." "The diner where I scrubbed floors," Hannah laughed. "Why?" "I turned it into a foundation," Ha-jin said. "A center for single mothers, free meals, job training, childcare. You are the president." Hannah felt tears sting her eyes. "Ha-jin, you said you wanted to help people like you," Ha-jin said. "Now you can. You have the power, Hannah. Use it." Hannah leaned forward and kissed him. It's a slow, deep kiss. "Thank you," she whispered. "No," Ha-jin said, resting his forehead against hers. "Thank you for showing up that day, for not giving up on me." Leo clapped his hands, demanding attention. They both laughed. Ha-jin pulled Hannah onto his lap, holding both his wife and his son. Outside, the snow kept falling, but inside it was warm. The glass tower wasn't a cage anymore, it was a fortress. And for the first time in her life, Hannah wasn't surviving, she was living. The end. Wait before you click away. Did you love Hannah's journey from the erased wife to the queen of the empire? If this story made you feel something, anger, sadness, joy, then you need to smash that subscribe button right now. We have hundreds more stories coming. Darker billionaires, grittier revenge. And tell me in the comments, what should Ha-jin and Hannah name their next baby? See you in the next story. Stay timeless.